We hope for. We don't want to be where the police have kept us. We want to be able to move towards the Jolobi House and be in the forefront as we requested to be. That's what we are waiting to move. So when the police give an indication, so far they have barricaded us and we are stuck in the middle. We don't want to continue to inconvenience Ghanaians who are out there. We want the traffic to flow, for fellow citizens to get about their business. We are pleading with the police to allow the demonstrations to pass through. Blocking here is not safe. We are asking the police again, blocking people here is not safe. We want traffic to flow. That's why we are pleading with the police.
And I've seen you engage in some of the protesters, sometimes telling them that don't resort to violence, let them know you are not carrying arms, raise your hands, and all of that. How important is this in, calming the seeming agitated crowd here today?
One of the things that is important to us is that continuously the idea of violence has been weaponized to deny us the freedom of protest. We want to be able to create a protest culture that shows that protest is safe. That when people are coming out to voice themselves out, they should be treated and respected in the same rights as the right to vote. Now, for that to happen, we must make sure there's no incident that can be capitalized on to create a misdirection or to create an impression that protest is inherently dangerous. That is how we break the culture around people's fear around protest. That's why it is important to continue to re-emphasize that this is a non-violent movement. The non-violence of the civil rights movement, the non-violence of the Gandhi movement that wants significant progress. That is what we are inspired by. And we want to be able to lead by that example.
Finally, before you go, all of this is about raising concerns about mismanagement, of the economy, unemployment that is forcing a lot of young people to flee the country, and what many of the protesters here are saying is high-level corruption. At the end of this third day of protest, so this is what is happening. I've seen, so Oliver back, there's an ambulance.
Well, we'll get back to those sound bites in a bit, but let's talk to a professor of political science. He's also the president of the University Teachers Association of Ghana, Legon, and Professor Ransford Edward Vanjampo is my guest. Good morning, Prof. Thank you very much for your time.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
Prof, first of all, why did UTAG decide to throw in a word in support of the occupied Jolobi House?
What is Jolobi?
I don't know. Maybe we'll call Oliver and ask him what it means.
When I was seeking to be elected as president, I told them that UTAG over the years had always been concerned with matters of its conditions of service. But yesteryears, in time past, they were also an agent of restraint. They played a role as countervailing authority, the powers of the land. And if you say countervailing authority, you are talking about the existence of power that counter the exercise of power. And so I promised them that we are no longer going to be heard only talking about our conditions of service, but we will play a role in ensuring that we are heard on all issues bordering on the governance and the management of the economy, all issues affecting the interests of the nation. Sadly, whilst we are trying to do this, there are other bodies and organizations that also used to be heard that have seamlessly been silenced now. Now they no longer talk on any issue that is affecting the country. So we've decided to resurrect our role as agents of restraint and countervailing authority. And so we would always be heard talking about issues bordering on the interest of the nation. If it is right, we'll commend government. If it is wrong, we'll subject government to strict proof.
Now, the conversations have been that these issues that we're talking about have already been acknowledged by the government. And so the demonstration or the protest is an overkill. What do you say?
Who said that? The person who said that just expressed his opinion. The demonstrators had, or they still have the right to express dissent, and one mechanism for expression of dissent is demonstration. And so you can express your opinion about it. But the people who demonstrated also had a right. And in fact, I commend them for doing what they did, because gradually we were becoming a docile population. And to the extent that they defied the rains, the heavy thunderstorms, tell everybody and the powers that be that Ghanaians cannot be taken for granted. You've been taken for granted for far too long. But the people are defying heavy rains and they want to be in the rains to stage their protest and all that. And government should sit up and do the right thing.
Let's pay attention to lawyer Martin Kpebu, who says that the action of the police on Thursday, the first day of the protest, is actually a retrogression in our democratic processes because of the way and manner in which they conducted themselves, and that the police need to render an unqualified apology first to the protesters who were picked up and then also to the citizens of Ghana. You are a political science professor. What do you say to this?
But you look at the statement we issued, it was hinged on the fact that we thought the way people were handled wasn't the best. So we had said that long before Martin Kpebu spoke. We don't think that people who are demonstrating should be arrested and handled. They said it rolled back the frontiers of the gains of our democracy. And it's been one too many. The police themselves must begin to be revising their notes. It is anachronistic and antiquated and outdated, a strategy to always wait till last minute of demonstration to want to use the court to frustrate demonstrators. It doesn't make sense. We have seen through this. And it is only a police officer who is not receptive to learning who will continue to go on that route. You've gone on this route from 1992. People want to go on demonstration, then you want to use the court to frustrate them. And so now people can predict. If you want to go on demonstration, they will tell you that you predict that, well, today you inform the police, they will not mind you. A day before, they will try to tell you that, we are seeking injunction. I mean, it is, if you do that, and you've done that over and over and been commenting about it, saying it is not right, and you are not learning, you are simply not receptive to learning. And so what they did was wrong. We condemned it in no uncertain terms. They have seen the apology that has been issued, and I've also seen their promise and promise that they are committed to ensuring that people who demonstrate have their rights protected and all that.
Right.
But I think the little addition that was, a little but very important addition that was omitted was the fact that they didn't apologize to those who were arrested and manhandled. I think it's better late than never.
Right.
The apology was confined to those who face the wrath of the vehicular traffic. But I think it must be extended to cover those who were also manhandled, including those who were not even part of the demonstration. Apology it takes a man to be able to acknowledge that, look, I erred, and so I'm sorry. I mean, it actually earns respect. If you don't do that, then you open the floodgates for others to want to even rubbish your apology, which I don't think is the best.
Prof, hold the line for me. Mr. Joe Jackson is joining us on the other line. He is the Chief Operating Officer of Dalex Finance. Chief, good morning. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, Johnny. Good to speak to you this morning.
Great. Now, there are varied opinions. For example, the National Youth Organizer of the NPP has written a 2-pager suggesting that the protest was much ado about nothing because they don't see any tangible reasons for stepping out onto the streets. One of the cardinal points that the protesters raised, from Ifia the musician to Kojo Sheldon to name them, all of Stoneboy, all those who came out there, was the fact that the economy was breaking the backs of the people. How do you marry the two? The NPP Youth Organizer says was much ado about nothing. They didn't see any tangible reasons. These musicians and the celebs, if you like, as they are called, say, look, we see a different picture with our protesters. How do we marry the two?
Johnny, the truth of the matter is this, that it is the tone-deaf nature of the powers that be currently that causes them to feel that It is much ado about nothing. People are suffering. Food prices have skyrocketed. We know what the challenges are. Anybody who thinks that this is much ado about nothing is living in a different land from what the rest of us experience. I'm an older person. I have a list of drugs that I buy every month. It has gone up 3 times. People call me and say, don't send me money. I know you are a diabetic like me. Send me some drugs. People are suffering. People are hungry. Listen, I didn't go to the Jubilee House to demonstrate. I was passing by. I saw what you would consider middle-class Ghanaian young people park their cars at CSIR and walk to Jubilee, to the demonstration site. Listen, anybody who thinks that this is much ado about nothing has completely lost the plot. This is a genuine expression to those who are tone deaf that we are so hard up and you are not listening, that this is the only thing we can do. And anybody who refuses to understand this, anybody who refuses to sit down and say, what can we do to make this better? How can we engage with the youth of this country? How can we acknowledge the difficulties that they are going through? How can we listen to what they are saying? And most important of all, what can we do to make things better? If you are not in that mode, you have lost it.
Professor Jampo, step in for me now, and there's a certain school of thought that is sipping in to suggest that if you go on demonstrations or consistently hold demonstrations, then you are endangering the peace and security of the country. You are the political science professor here. What do you say to that?
Well, that is an ignorant and illiterate conception or understanding of the essence of demonstration. Demonstrations that are staged by people who are armed and people who have an idea to cause confusion are oftentimes halted or checked by the police. The demonstration is peaceful and people are not armed. I do not see how it endangers the peace and security of any country. It is just a way of expressing dissent. So you are just telling me that those who make that argument are simply saying that the expression of dissent undermines the peace and security of a country. And it means that those people are also fundamentally ignorant about the dogmas of democracy. And one of the dogmas of democracy is the expression of dissent. One of the key cardinals of democracy is the expression of dissent. And demonstration is one means of expression the dissent. Peaceful demonstration. We are not talking about demonstration that people go with bombs and other ammunition. That's not it. Peaceful demonstrations do not have anything to do in compromising the peace and security of any nation. So please, that view should not be entertained, because then it means you are stifling the expression of dissent. So saying, I just heard my other senior colleague on the other side saying that making a response to what you read to him, that somebody saying the demonstration was much ado about nothing. I think the person is entitled to his views. And such people, maybe they have their bread at the bucket. Maybe since they don't live in Ghana, or they've actually been planted or been asked just through, as Ghanaians who say, standing to the guy of people who are complaining about genuine action. Because clearly you are swimming against the tide. Those who are governing themselves, even concede behind the scenes are hard. They even tell you that demonstrators raise legitimate concern.
Right.
And so you're a young man and people are doing this, and then you just go and say, well, it's a democracy. People have the right to express their opinion.
I see. Mr. Jackson, so the economy has been spoken about over and over again. The government insists that we are turning the corner. We have turned the corner, according to Finance Minister. One of the key things that also came about the protest was that the taxes are becoming one too many, with the latest one being on MCs and influencers and bloggers. And you saw them in their huge numbers at the protest. Have we not taxed the people too much already?
Well, we are living in a high tax, high inflation, low growth regime. That's where we live in. We live in a country where the government has expressly refused to explore cutting expenditure to resolve its debt crisis. And the only thing it can do, in its opinion, is to collect more and more tax. That is the truth.
I see.
And the worst part is that it's a tough one. On one hand, as an economist, I know that we don't collect enough taxes for this country. But unfortunately, we only collecting indirect taxes that are general, instead of specific taxes. We've spoken over and over again about property taxes. There's still a lot of lip service, but it does not happen. It has not happened. So on one hand, we don't collect enough taxes, and the taxes we collect are of the wrong kind. They're the most inefficient taxes possible. And these taxes hit the poor more than they hit the rich. I'll be honest with you. Listen, our tax regime needs a big overhaul. Do we need revenue? Yes. We need revenue to get out of the mess we are in now. But the way we're going about it is just deepening the taxes for those who are in the formal sector, not bringing in the informal sector as much as we should, and using the wrong kinds of taxes. There are lots of issues there.
I see. Professor Jampo, so William in the studio here is asking a question. He says, you are the trainers of these politicians, because most of them come and read political science. And then when they are done, they come onto the political landscape, and their attitude and how they go about their politics is far from what you taught them in school. Do you agree with this assertion, sir?
Well, it appears that, and that is the reason why some of us are always talking. There are so many things we teach, but they themselves, they'll meet you and tell you that, yes, you taught us well. When we got into the system reformed us. You taught us to be honest people, decent people, and not to resort to Machiavellianism in the exercise of power. But when we got there, we realized that the system was reforming enough to reform it. But we've been saying that we are training people to go and become change makers. They should bring effect changes to the status quo. You don't get taught and go and allow other corrupting practices to retool or to mold you. It doesn't help to bring about national development. A quick comment on the taxation matter. I think that in the lead up to 2016 election, so see, I get so worried and disappointed, and unfortunately, people who are excessively partisan and so cannot think objectively, always would want to disagree with him. But the point is this: in the lead up to 2016 elections, we heard of another terminology: nuisance taxation abolition.
That's right.
They are going to be abolishing nuisance taxation. Now, so the kind of taxation that we have, what are they now? Which ones were the nuisance ones that were abolished? And which ones have been introduced and increased? We are still paying COVID-19 levy recovery tax after COVID-19. And so many other things. As a public servant, when I take my payslip, I do not even look at, I only look at the net. You don't even look at the tax component because you may collapse. And yet government is still keeping and keeping and keeping and keeping. One easy and legitimate source of money for the income, property tax, because they themselves know the amount of property that they have, the number of properties and amount of money we've invested in them and scattered and dotted across the country, because they know that when we bring on board the property tax, it will affect them. You see, they are lackadaisical. They are lackadaisical about introducing that particular taxation. But you guys, at least you have. So why do you continue to tax? They have not. It is pathetic. It is sad. In our country, even when programs and interventions are put in place for the poor, the rich politicians would want to jump the queue and go ahead of the poor to go and benefit from them. And so one is taxation. The rich want to be exempted and the poor want to be heavily taxed. Sorry, the rich want to be exempted and they want the poor to be heavily taxed. Look at these scholarship schemes that are put in place for the poor and brilliant but needy students. Go there and see the number of awards that go to ministers and their children. They would jump the queue and go ahead of the poor. Go and look at CMB scholarship, which was meant to support the children of poor cocoa farmers. Go there and see. It is MPs, it is ministers of state whose children are rather benefited. And so here we are as a people. We have put in place a leadership and insulated them from the very problems they are supposed to be solving. And so when he says things are hard, he doesn't understand. He feels that you are doing something too much. Look, I am saying that if you are able to survive the 2024 election, if you are able to survive as a nation up to 2024 and we hold the elections successfully, whoever emerges as the leader of Ghana, things cannot be done as business as usual. There would have to be drastic changes because our politicians have governed poorly for far too long. Right. We have a lot of hope and confidence in President Akufo-Addo.
Right.
But it appears that his government is being the worst in the history of Ghana's republic.
Mr. Joe Jackson,
I'm
sorry,
to say this,
Prof.
But
Right.
it hurts me. We are all part of those who pushed for the exit of John Mahama. We thought he didn't know how to govern. So we all teamed up and supported President Akufo-Addo. We judged him by his utterances, the kinds of things that he was going to be saying. He was saying he was going to transform the God-given economy that relies on our export of cheap primary raw materials to an economy that exports finished products to outside. What have we done about the cliche of transforming the God-given economy? Please. So it is not out of malice. We speak like this as a result of sincere feeling of disappointment.
Mr. Jackson, the young people that I encountered on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday expressed frustration. And you are a senior citizen in this country, as you've mentioned already, how the price tag on the drugs that you buy month-on-month basis have increased up to 3 times already. Are you as frustrated as the young people are?
I am frustrated. And maybe even more than the young people of this country.
I see.
When you are young, you have age on your side and you have options. But when you are at my age and you've seen 50% of your purchasing power of the funds that you've put aside for your pension, which is looming, wiped out. When you see the difficulties ahead as you grow older and maybe a lot more frail in your strength, that is frightening. Even at this moment, the young people can even say, I want to leave this country. Some of us don't have a choice. We can't leave at this age. We can't pull up our roots and go and start life again. So in certain ways, we may be far more frustrated than the youth and far more scared of the future, the way we are going.
I see. Professor Jampo, so where do we go from here? You look at the posture of the government, and many people have slammed the president to say that you were active during in 1995 and many other demonstrations against VAT, Komi Preku demonstration. People lost their lives. This was held the first day right at your doorstep. People were arrested. The presidency is yet to speak. The president himself is yet to speak. And some say, how can a serial demonstrator be quiet about a demonstration that went south on the very first day by the police? And the president has said nothing. What do you say?
The president will not listen. I mean, there's several times that we've spoken to the president and they didn't listen. And so if they are not listening, are you not here? How many times haven't we called for the shuffle and we're not listening to them? So many times that we said when Domelevo was being at civil society I spoke. Many people spoke against it, but the president didn't listen. There are so many instances that I can cite to show that the president has not listened. And so if he's not listening, then clearly he wasn't going to listen to the demonstrators. And if you're not going to listen to them, and some have been arrested and manhandled, then he's not going to comment about it. It's his posting. The logical thing to do for him is to be quiet because he doesn't listen and he was not going to listen. The demonstrators, because the issues that the demonstrators were raising are issues that are legitimate and have been raised over and over and over.
Right.
But he wasn't going to listen. But it's said that even Jerry Rawlings knew how to listen. The man who said he was not a fan of multi-party democracy, the man who combined revolutionary excesses with the practice of democracy, he knew how to listen. Such that during the 1995 Kumipeku demonstration, when people were saying, people left the President Akufo-Addo said that they didn't like the VAT, Rawlings knew how to listen to the point that he had to withdraw the VAT.
Right.
He withdrew the VAT, later introduced it. The people who demonstrated against it, when they got power, they even increased the VAT. And so what is wrong with us, and what is wrong with our leaders, and what is wrong with their sense of honesty and sincerity? If Rawlings, who does not believe in multi-party democracy, could listen to the pleas from demonstrators led by President Akufo-Addo, I don't understand why President Akufo-Addo will not listen to voices of dissent.
There's another demonstration scheduled for October that's coming up. Will it change anything? Occupy Bank of Ghana. Will it change anything?
Well, if things are not done right, then you should expect many more of such demonstrations by people who do not want to docile. And if it goes on and on and on, it can bring the needed change. So, if people are still not satisfied with the way things are going, and powers or duty bearers would also resort to yin phobia attitude and will not do things to show palpable change in a manner that will be appealing to people who are expressing dissent, then there should be more demonstration.
Professor Mr. Jackson, you will have the final bite on this, and then I come back to Professor Vanjampo. Is there a way that we can inspire hope in the young people to perish the thought of fleeing from Ghana, number one, and also number two, believing that things would turn around very, very soon? Is there a way that can be done?
Johnny, there is a way. What happened over the last 3 days shows that the youth have to be taken seriously. And even though the powers that be may pretend that they haven't heard, I assure you they have heard. Even though the powers that be may pretend that this is a storm in a teacup, they are lying. When you see people stand through the rain and tell you that, listen, we're losing hope, you must hear them. And for me, the last 3 days represent the change that can come because the youth of this country will stand up. And anybody who says they haven't heard is a liar. Anybody who says they don't know what has happened is lying. Johnny, that is what should give us hope.
I see. Professor Jampo, your closing thoughts. Do you see hope as well?
Well, so long as our people are willing to be alive and active, some of these mechanisms are mechanisms that will keep leaders on their toes with the view to ensuring that we do the right thing. And so long as demonstrations would force people to do the right thing and keep them on their toes, it gives me some hope. But we do not want, we are not a country, demonstrations and all those things, they come in as a last resort.
Right.
If government is serious and government is listening and government is committed to redeeming its promises or governing well, then it must do things that can tangibly be reflected in the lives of the people, such that these demonstrations that increases the political temperature would be unnecessary. But so long as government decides to resort to, well, you have the right to demonstrate, I want to listen to you, then the political temperature will continue to be increased. And guess what? When the political temperature is allowed to peak, to that extent, it in a way frustrates our quest to also bring about development, because no investor wants to go to a country where every now and then people are demonstrating. And so it is not good. So let government begin to do the right thing, and I'm sure that demonstration will also be minimized. But if government decides not to listen, then there will be more demonstration. And I'm sure that would also force the government to be kept on its toes to do the right thing.
Thank you. Professor Vanjampo is a political scientist. He's also the president of the University Teachers Association of Ghana, Legon chapter. Thank you, Prof. And thank you, Mr. Joe Jackson. He's the COO of Delex Finance. We're grateful that you could join us this morning, sharing your morning with us.
Yes. I decided to join because I've seen that this struggle is a struggle for all people of Ghana, people of all ages, sizes, and so on. If we, the old people, should leave this thing to the young people who don't feel motivated enough, not much will go on.